Hey, welcome to another episode of DOCasts. In this episode, we're going to be looking at POW. Now, what is POW? Well, POW helps you get your local environment set up super quick and easy without you having to mess around with any Apache configuration files. And that way you can use the naming conventions of myapp.dev or thisapp.dev or myproject.dev. That way you can just type that into your browser and you'll be able to go straight to your project without having to start up your Rails applications each and every time. So it makes things super duper simple. So who was POW created by? Well, that's a good question. And this is actually a Basecamp project. So the creators of Basecamp have also created POW for their own development needs. As you can see, we're currently on version 0.5.0 as of October 16th, 2004. And you can see that there's only 3 steps to get POW set up on your local environment. Pretty cool. Now, if you want POW to work with your PHP development environments, that way you can have your own development environments for PHP, you're going to need to do some extra steps within Apache and its configuration files so that they cooperate and they work together seamlessly. We're not going to cover that in this episode. In this episode, we're just going to get POW working on our local environment, and we're going to get it working with one of the Rails apps I've just created as an example. Again, there's 3 steps to get it installed. The same command that you use for installation is the command that you're going to use to also upgrade POW. So we just open up our terminal utility and we'll just copy and paste this in here. Then within my command line utility, I'll just paste that in here and I'll press on enter. So I have POW currently installed. This is just going to go ahead and upgrade me to the latest version. Then it's going to go ahead and start POW back up. Now, if I take a look at my local home directory, so I'll just go ahead and LSA, that'll show me that I do have .pow now installed. Now, this is a directory that we can go ahead and go into. So I'll just go ahead and type in cd.pow, and you'll see that I currently have symbolic links within this directory that we're going to go over in this next step. So if I go switch back to my browser and I take a look at the next step, it tells you to go ahead and cd into POW just like we did. Now, once you're within your .pow directory, you can create a symbolic link to your application by using ln-s and then the path to your application. So we'll go ahead and we'll grab our path to our application and we'll create a symbolic link within our POW directory. So I'll move back into iTerm. I'll go to my blog that I set up here. I'll type in pwd for print working directory, and it's going to go ahead and it's going to grab my working directory. I'll just go ahead and I'll copy this, move back into the POW directory, and then I'll type in ln-s and then give my path to my current application, which is my blog. And what you'll see happen is you'll see that this will create a symbolic link that will be titled blog. So if I go ahead and press enter, appears I forgot to take care of those spaces in my project. So what I'll do is I'll escape the space here by typing a backslash, and then I'll go ahead and I'll hit enter, and that should give me my symbolic link here. So if I type in ls, it'll give me the symbolic link there for blog. And now if I go into my browser here and I open up a new window, and then we're going to type in http://blog.dev, and that should bring up my Rails application if I get the proper configuration files set up for my Rails app here. Now you'll see that my rack app, which is my Rails app, is raising an exception when POW tried to run it. And this is because I don't have my POW.rc file and my RVM.rc file set up for POW to go ahead and reference. And this is required if you're using RVM. If you're using RBM, then you don't have to set up the following configuration files. But since I started using RVM before I discovered RBM, I just stuck with RVM, so it's quite easy to go ahead and get this set up. We'll go into the POW user manual, and then we'll take a look at the specify Ruby versions for RVM, and we'll move into here. You'll see that we need to create an RVM.rc file, and we need to go ahead and place the Ruby version into it. Then we need to create a POW.rc, and this is required because RVM works by injecting itself into your shell. You need to reload it in each application using the POW.rc file, and so we'll just copy and paste that into there, and it'll get working. So let's jump into our blog, and then we'll go ahead and we'll list the files that are in there. And actually, let's go ahead and look at our hidden files there. And we don't have a .pow.rc file set up yet, so let's go ahead and create one using vim. And we're just gonna go ahead and copy this information here, and then we're gonna inject it into our file here. Alright, so we'll go ahead and we'll write to that. Next, we need to create our RVM RC file. So if we go ahead and we just create that here, this will be for our Ruby version. Alright, then we're going to enter in RVM and then my Ruby version, which is what RVM is set to right now. And then I like to go ahead and I like to put the gem set. So currently is DOCasts sample apps is my gem set. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to escape and I'm going to write this file and quit this file. Now we should see that we have the PowRC and the .rvmrc file created. One last thing I recommend placing in your Rails app is in your gem file. So if I go ahead and I use less to open up my gem file just so I can read it, you'll see that I have the Ruby version set here and that I have my Ruby gem set version set here. That's just recommended. I like to do that when I have RVM set up. So on the topic of getting your app set up for your local environment, I definitely recommend you inputting these two lines. It'll make your life a whole lot simpler. And RVM will go ahead and it'll actually read what Ruby version you have here and then what gem set. So it'll look for these two in combination with each other, and it'll set it as soon as it changes, as soon as you change into your directory. So let's go ahead and let's close out of this. So just type Q to close out of the less command. So that's a neat little trick that you can use to load up and view a file when you're on a Unix system. All right, so now that we have this set up, usually what you would do is you would just go ahead and use Rails server to go ahead and get Rails started. And using omyzsh, I now have the alias for Rails server as RS. So I'll go ahead and I'll type that in. And you'll see that I'm able to access it locally on my local host. If I go ahead and I open up within my browser and I just refresh this page, you'll see that I have my Rails application set up here. And if I go back into my command, I'm just going to go ahead and exit out of that and back into the browser. If I take a look at this Rails application through the http://blog.dev, if I go ahead and I click on enter, it should now show the same thing we saw here. So, yep, lo and behold, it is showing your welcome aboard here. Now you can go ahead and you can start developing your Rails application. Now, one thing to note is if you're not seeing the changes from your Rails application, you should restart POW. And there's a couple of ways that you can go ahead and you can restart POW. If you take a look at chapter 3 in their user manual on restarting POW, you can touch the global restart file to go ahead and restart POW. What I like to do is I just like to go ahead and open up my activity monitor and I'll go ahead and I'll search for POW here. Then I'll select it and then I'll force quit it. And what that will do is it'll restart POW automatically and it'll reload your environment here so that some of the changes that you've made, if you haven't seen it, you will see. But I haven't really had a problem with that, so just know that that is available to you. And this is how you go ahead and get POW set up on your local environment. Again, if you're looking to integrate it with your PHP development environments using Apache's virtual host system, you're going to need to set up a few extra configuration files, but again, that's not covered within this video. And the reason why we're covering this is because we're going to be using our blog.dev application. We're going to be setting up a deployment to one of our DigitalOcean droplets here, and that'll be in some of the upcoming videos, so stay tuned.